Welcome in everyone to the Larsonland podcast. I'm your host, Sawyer Hill, and my co host, Dylan Bradshaw, couldn't make it on the show today as he is moving into his new house. He'll be back on the show next week. But if you're new to the show, we come in here every single Wednesday and talk about all things involving the 2021 NASCAR Cup Series champion, Young Money Kyle Larson. Lots to unpack in today's show, everybody. Kyle got things started off last week at the Silver Dollar Speedway out in Chico, California, the track that himself and Brad Sweet and Colby Copeland all co-promote. Kyle competed in 2 nights of racing action there at the Silver Dollar Speedway. The first night, kicking off the racing for the week, was in the 360 sprint car where Larson saw himself picking up quick time and starting fifth in the A main. On the first lap of the race, Kyle spun out, kind of went into turn one and just looped it around. And a lot of people on Twitter were kind of joking, saying, "Oh, maybe Kyle's just spinning out on purpose at his own track, trying to draw fans into the show, make a good race." But I don't believe any of that. But Kyle spun out on the first lap in the first turn and was able to come all the way from dead last and finish second place in that race. I think if he had maybe another lap or two, we might have saw him in victory lane on that first night. On night two, the World of Outlaws action began for the Gold Cup. It was split field preliminary nights for the Gold Cup event, and Larson competed on the first of those 2 nights. Again, it was the Paul Silva wrenched Kevin Kozlowski owned number 57 car picking up the overall quick time award in time trials, and Larson ended up with his heat race result, and the whole points ended up putting him starting 8th in the A main. From the drop of the green on Thursday night, it was pretty evident that Kyle was going to be tough to beat in this one. Ryan Timms, though, huge competition to Kyle Larson. Kind of a good battle all night, Timms and Larson throwing moves back and forth at each other, trading the lead. Larson kind of got by Timms, looked like he was going to pull away, but as they kind of worked through lap traffic, Timms fought his way back and took the lead back from Larson, and what looked like a sure win for Larson kind of was questionable in points of this race with Timms, and he was really the only guy that could beat Larson in that race. But with a few late restarts in the race, Kyle kind of just waited and took his time and waited for Timms to make a mistake, and eventually he did, and Kyle took the lead and went on to win the race. So win number 17 on the season overall for Kyle Larson. But the good weekend at Silver Dollar didn't really transition into Kansas. Kyle Larson, with his win on Thursday night in the preliminary night action, he actually locked himself into a Saturday night A main for the Gold Cup, but he relinquished that starting spot and said he was not going to come back Saturday night for that race. He was going to focus on Kansas and the Cup Series stuff as he went out there and qualified 7th place on Saturday. Somewhat an average day on Sunday for the 5 team, but I think the expectations for this race were much, much higher. Kind of going into the race, if you remember back to the race in the spring, Kyle was leading late in that race, and Kurt Busch kind of fought Kyle for the win and ended up picking up the win. He just came on fast there at the end, but Kyle had a good car all day, and we kind of expected from that performance in the spring that maybe Kyle would be able to, show that same speed this week at Kansas, but it was kind of a weird day for Kyle. He was kind of stuck in the 7th to 10th range all day and couldn't really go anywhere throughout the race, but battling for the lead was really out of sight for the 5 team. It was kind of a night and day difference from the spring race there at Kansas, and Cliff Daniels definitely, we'll talk a little bit more about it in a minute, but early, kind of towards the middle part of the race, Cliff came on the radio and asked Kyle to be more aggressive on the restarts. It kind of looked like Kyle was slipping back sometimes on the restarts, not being aggressive enough, as Cliff Daniels put it, and almost every single restart Kyle would lose 2 or 3 positions, and obviously not 100% sure of the reasoning, but Cliff Daniels kind of turned to, Kyle not being aggressive enough on some of these starts, and Kyle really didn't have much to say about that on the radio back. Kyle's car was quick enough to get back by some of these guys when he lost spots on the restarts, but even with some help on pit road from time to time, it seemed like Kyle couldn't really move any further in the field and ended his day with an eighth place finish overall. Probably the biggest event of the day, though, was after the race. Crew Chief Cliff Daniels came on the radio and stated that he was very frustrated after the race. He said that the car was capable of a second place finish or somewhere around there, and that they ended up finishing eighth. He went on to say that he didn't want to really hear anybody complaining about this result, and that it was on to Bristol, and everybody really needed to stay locked in. So kind of a Cliff Daniels that we haven't seen in the past very much. I obviously haven't really followed Cliff Daniels and his racing, his crew chief duties much more before Kyle Larson and him joined up last season. But we don't really hear Cliff get harsh on the radio and really honest about some stuff with Kyle very often. I know we had that Charlotte race in the Coke 600 earlier this year where, Cliff had his famous pep talk that he gave to Kyle, but this week it was a lot more honest, and it was definitely harsh at times on Kyle Larson. But, I saw a lot of people on social media kind of saying that this was maybe a bad thing, Cliff, saying, oh, Cliff needs to be fired, or Cliff this, or Cliff that. And in my opinion, I think this is a good thing. Cliff needs to express some of this emotion sometimes. And, in racing, it's not always, the guy setting up the car. Cliff obviously is involved with that and, keeping the whole team in line. But sometimes, there's things that the driver can't necessarily see from inside the car that Cliff sees from sitting on the pit box. He has lots of data at his hands. And, when he tells Kyle that, maybe you need to do this or maybe you need to do that, I think it's not necessarily a bad thing. And obviously, at the end of the day, Cliff wants to win just as bad as Kyle does. And I think this is going to kind of light a fire under this five team and Kyle Larson going into the elimination race this weekend at Bristol. The playoff field this weekend, Saturday night, 500 lap race at Bristol. Going to the race, Kyle Larson is 27 points above the cut line. You can see that over here on the right side of the screen. I have the standings up because Dylan is not here. You can see Kyle's probably, in a pretty, I would say, not safe place to the cut line, but he looks like he's, I don't know, unless he has some major trouble at Bristol, knock on wood, it looks like Kyle should be able to, with a, routine day, be able to advance to the round of 12. But some of those other drivers at the bottom there going to be in a tough position going into this race. Guys like Daniel Suarez, Tyler Reddick, Austin Cindric, Kyle Busch below the cut line. Definitely didn't expect to see that one, but we'll talk about some more Kyle Busch news here in a second. But overall, Christopher Bell is the only driver that is locked in, and it doesn't matter what he does at Bristol. He will advance to the round of 12 based on his huge points lead over the cut line. But Kyle is the defending winner of this Bristol night race. We all remember that race last year with the battle with Kevin Harvick and Chase Elliott getting mad at Kevin Harvick and kind of Chase helping Kyle out. In that race, just one of the better races of last year, and kind of what kick-started Kyle's insane playoff run and all of those wins that he went on a tear on. So maybe we'll see the same thing this week. Obviously, like I said before, what Cliff said on the radio, he was harsh, he was honest, but I think it's going to light a fire under this team, and I think it's one that needed to be lit, and I think it's going to do good things going into Bristol and the rest of the playoffs for this number 5 team. Moving on to some other big news this week, Kyle Busch announced that he is going to be driving for Richard Childress Racing in 2023. This news comes as no surprise that Kyle Busch is going to be moving over from Joe Gibbs Racing to Richard Childress Racing, kind of from the beginning of this season. There were questions about Kyle Busch and whether he would be able to return to Joe Gibbs Racing. Sponsorship from M&M's fell off, and Joe Gibbs Racing was going to have a hard time paying Kyle Busch his contract. But now Kyle Busch over on Team Chevy, we're glad to see him there. But with this news, it also was announced that Tyler Reddick will be driving for Richard Childress Racing next year in a third chartered car. This obviously because Reddick will be moving on to 2311 Racing in 2023. So Reddick's still, or in 2024, excuse me. So Reddick's still under contract with RCR in 2023. So that will put Austin Dillon, Tyler Reddick, and Kyle Busch in RCR seats next year. But the kind of weird part about this is that all 36 NASCAR Cup Series charters are currently accounted for. So I'm definitely sure in the coming weeks or months we will hear some sort of sale of a charter. What team that will be selling their charter, not 100% sure. But the last time a charter was sold was when Starcom Racing sold their charter to 2311 Racing for the addition of the 45 car there. And that charter went for around $13.5 million. Very hefty payday there to Starcom Racing for that charter. But Adam Stern of the Sports Business Journal reported on August 10th of this year that according to some of the people in the NASCAR industry, the value of a charter has gone up. Imagine that, to $20 million now is what a ballpark estimate of what a charter will go for. So with that in mind, I think it's important to note that Richard Childress Racing probably won't be buying a $20 million third charter for their team just solely for Tyler Reddick to stay one more year and then leave and go to 2311 Racing in 2024. So I think this kind of poses the question in 2024 when Reddick is gone and moved on to 2311 Racing, who will be the driver of that third Richard Childress Racing car? Obviously, Kyle Busch now under contract there, and Austin Dillon under contract there as well. So my guess is as good as anybody else's who could be in that third car. So if you have any ideas who you would like to see in that third car at RCR, leave some comments down below on YouTube. This week for Kyle Larson, as far as dirt track stuff, don't really expect him to be doing any racing. The next confirmed race is that high limit sprint car series race at Wayne County Speedway, the Sheldon Haudenschild promoted event there. But nothing confirmed this week for Kyle Larson. I know a lot of people were wondering if he was going to be at Fairbury tonight for the One for the Road event with the Flow Racing Night in America series. I know that Lincoln, or not Lincoln, I mean, Fairbury Speedway, they did put his car on the promotional material on Facebook and stuff. So a lot of people were kind of thinking, oh, Kyle might be there, but the 6 car is not there at Fairbury. So next dirt race for Kyle, who knows when it'll be, but make sure to stay tuned to Larsonland on all of our social media so you will not miss it if Kyle does race anything on dirt. So thanks again, everyone, for tuning in and listening to the show. We'll be back again with Dylan to recap all the racing from the elimination race at Bristol this weekend, as well as anything that Kyle may surprisingly participate in. If you're watching this on YouTube, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please follow this podcast so you don't miss a thing. Have a great rest of the week, everyone, and enjoy the on-track action over the next week. We will see you in the next episode.